Hi boys and girls, it's time to start Logic of English Lesson 8. We're going to start with two new sounds today that I'd like to introduce you to. The first one is IGH when it's together. This is a three-letter phonogram, and it says the sound I. Can you say that? I. Now, I want you to think in your head, what kind of a phonogram is this? Is it a vowel phonogram? Is it a consonant phonogram? Is it a multi-letter phonogram? Is it an R-controlled phonogram? Think for a minute. You should have said it's a vowel phonogram, because even though there's a G and an H there, they're completely silent, aren't they? They're quiet. So it's making an I sound, like in the word fight or night. Okay? A lot of younger kids get stuck on this. They'll get to a word that has IGH and they'll say ig-ha, because they're trying to sound out each and every sound. But remember, we know that in English sometimes phonograms go together. So this is the three-letter I. Now let's look at this next one. Okay? I have two words here up on the board. The first one has this phonogram in it, and it's the word white. And then this one has just a plain W in it, and it says will. Now, do any of you notice a difference between the sounds at the beginning of those words? White, will. It's not a trick question, but do you notice any difference or not? Thumbs up if you notice a difference. White, will. Thumbs down if you don't notice a difference. Hands in the middle if you're not sure. Okay, here in Illinois, or here in the Midwest, most of us don't hear a difference between the WH white in white and the W in will. And that's because over time, those two sounds have sort of blended together. It used to be that they actually had a slightly separate sound. And in other places of our world, like Canada, they still pronounce the WH with a breathier sound like wha, wha. Do you hear it? Wha. So instead of white, they would say white. Or instead of while, they would say while. It's almost like you hear the H in there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn this WH with a more of a breathy sound. So when you see it, I want you to go wha. So it's like you're doing the W, but there's a lot of air behind it. Wha, like that. And when your teachers and I go to teach you words that have this WH, instead of saying wha, we're going to try to make it more breathy, like wha. And we'll put up two fingers too, so you know, oh, it's the WH. Now what kind of phonogram is this? Is it a vowel phonogram? A consonant phonogram? An R-controlled phonogram? A multi-letter phonogram? It is a multi-letter phonogram, isn't it? But it's also consonants, right? There's no vowels in this, so it only makes a consonant sound, wha. So this is the three-letter I, and this is the wha. Let's go ahead. I'm going to put those at the back of our card stack. These are all the phonograms that we have done so far. Look at that. That's amazing how many you've done. So I'm going to say the phonogram sound, and I want you to repeat it just again so that we are getting it correct, so we're not making any guesses. Okay? So say R. A that we may not use at the end of an English word. Z. Sh. E. As in her. A. Oi that we may not use at the end of an English word. O that is not used at the end of English words. Ch, k, sh. A that we may use at the end of an English word. K, two-letter k. Qua. O. Oi that we may use at the end of an English word. O that we may use at the end of a word. Three-letter I. And hua. Okay, now you're going to take a second and you are going to look in your student guide. So if you can turn to page 115, do you see this right here, 115? What you're supposed to do on page 115 is to underline the WH in each of these words at the top. This is just to remind your brain, remember, that sometimes when phonograms go together, we want to underline them so our brain sees them as a sound unit, not just by itself. So I don't want to go wah-ha-n. I want to say wah-n because the WH is going together. Okay? Then I want you to explore and think for a minute. Where am I seeing that WH in the word? Is it at the beginning, middle, or end? Then when you're finished with that, go ahead and read each of these words. It says it wants you to compare the sound that you're hearing with these W's versus the sound you're hearing with the WH. But like we already talked about, most of us here in the Midwest, we don't make a difference in our sounds. The sounds have blended together. So the WH no longer sounds like wah to us. It sounds like wah, and the W says wah as well. So it's up to your teacher. You can go ahead and skip this part if you want, but definitely explore for a minute where the WH is in these words. I'm going to keep going. What you should have noticed about the WH is that it's used only at the beginning of base words. It's only ever at the beginning. So if you happen to hear a wah sound at the end of a word, it is not this phonogram. This is only ever at the beginning. So this is wah, used only at the beginning of a base word. Can you say that? Wah, that's used only at the beginning of a base word. Okay, now you're going to watch a quick video about some of our R-controlled vowels that can also be lazy, like what we've been talking about. Remember how we've been talking about schwa, which are vowels which get lazy and they say their or their I sound in an unstressed part of a word or a lazy part of a word. Now you're going to watch a quick video about R-controlled vowels that can also be lazy.